15% of all the jobs posted worldwide require critical thinking in some shape or form. According to the World Economic Forum, critical thinking is one of the top 10 skills required in the workplace in this decade. But hold on, what on earth is critical thinking and how can we improve it? Well, in this video, I will share with you 3 simple techniques which you can use to improve your critical thinking ability. And we will do this by helping a confused engineer, a frustrated general manager, and a clueless customer service agent. My name is Jamil Hai, and I've been working in the corporate sector for the last 18 years. And my passion is to help you build real life skills for your job and career that they don't teach you in college. First, let's try to find out what critical thinking really is. If you Google the definition of critical thinking, you will find what you can see on the screen right now. But let's try to explore critical thinking by understanding what it's not. If you have a habit of taking things at their face value, you are not thinking critically. As a famous example, if somebody comes and tells you that the earth is flat and you just accept that fact, you are not thinking critically. Similarly, in one of the examples I'm going to share later in this video, we have an engineer at a plant who has a situation where one of his machines is leaking a fluid, and he takes a cursory look at the machine and he decides to change the seal of the fluid. However, a few days later, the leak comes back. This engineer is not thinking critically as well. So let's try to help this engineer by applying the first tool of critical thinking, which is the 5 why analysis. Now, 5 why analysis is a tried and tested technique in the space of critical thinking. It was initially developed by the Japanese industrialists, and the philosophy was that if you ask the question why 5 times, you get to the root cause of an issue. I've also covered the 5 why analysis in a separate video I made on problem solving some time ago, and you can find the link of that somewhere over here. Now let's apply the 5 why analysis to the engineering problem we have at hand. So the first symptom we see in this case is that the fluid is leaking from the machine. So if we ask the first why, the answer is that the seal is damaged. And this is where the engineer stopped and decided to change the seal. However, we know that the problem came back. So then we need to ask ourselves that why is the seal damaged? An investigation happened on this file. The answer was that the metal shavings were making their way into the fluid, and that's why the seal was getting damaged. Now the question is, why are the metal shavings getting into the fluid in the first place? The answer to this question is that a screen on the fluid pump is broken. Now the question is, why is the screen on the fluid pump broken? Now the answer to this why is that the screen is located in a place where it gets hit by falling parts. Now with this why, we get to the root cause of the problem, and the solution was simply to put a guard in the area where the screen is located. Notice that the solution is now completely different from changing the seal, which was the possible solution in the first why. However, now that we have done the 5 why analysis and we have gotten to the root cause, this solution of putting the guard around the screen was more sustainable and prevented the issue from happening again. So the next tool we will explore in this critical thinking learning journey is called the 7 so whats. Sometimes you may want to apply your critical thinking ability to future consequences versus past root causes, which we just saw. In this case, let's explore the situation of our frustrated general manager who is not happy because his product is consistently out of stock. So he needs to decide what is the best way forward for him. So let's apply the technique of 7 so whats to this problem. So in this case, we have a product supply issue. There is no product available. The question is, so what? Well, we need a product supply solution because if the product is not available, then there is no business. So what? Well, in the case of this organization, they don't know how to fix the problem of product supply. So what? Well, we need to find someone who can fix the product supply problem. So what? Well, it's obvious that we need to find a supply chain manager. So what? Well, if we need to do that, we need to change our priorities on recruitment. So what? So if we do that, we may have to delay the hiring of some of the open sales positions in the organization. So what? So if we do that, we may have to alter the sales targets for the year. Now this looks like a pretty decent trade-off because there is no point in setting sales targets if there is no product to sell. So changing the recruitment priorities in order to hire a supply chain manager sounds like a much better trade-off for this business versus hiring more salespeople with no product to sell. So by hiring a supply chain manager urgently, this general manager can find a faster solution to his product supply challenges and hence achieve the goals of this organization. Now let's come to the third and the final technique, which is called the 80-20 rule. Critical thinking is also a lot about prioritization. In today's time and age, when most of the jobs are pretty overwhelming, setting the right priorities for oneself is critically important. When it comes to prioritization, you can apply the 80-20 rule to critically think through your priorities. So what is the 80-20 rule? Well, the 80-20 rule is also known as the Pareto principle after Vilfredo Pareto, who was an Italian economist, who noted that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the people. Now, this principle largely applies to almost any situation. If you look at the economics of the world, 80% of the wealth is owned by 20% of the people. If you look at sports, 80% of the goals or runs are scored by 20% of the players. If you look at the field of software or technology, 80% of the errors are caused by 20% of the bugs. So the principle is kind of universal. Now let's apply the 80-20 rule to solve the challenges of a clueless customer service agent. Now in this case, this customer service agent is getting a lot of different customer complaints, and while he has tried to fix some of the problems randomly, he's seeing that the overall customer satisfaction is not improving at all. However, once he analyzes the nature of the complaints in detail, he finds out the same Pareto principle, that 80% of the complaints are being caused by 20% of the errors in the application his company is using. Now when he focuses on those 20% of the problems, he's able to eliminate 80% of his complaints and starts seeing a significant improvement in his overall customer satisfaction score. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions about critical thinking or any other skills that we cover on this channel, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Thanks for watching.